Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and what an honor it is to connect with an incredible drummer in person and also a master chef.
Good. First time.
Allyn Robinson, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey man, it's good to be here. I'm glad this kind of fell into place, man. What a fluke.
There are no coincidences, man. You know, I just really wanted you to talk about, set the scene for the audience because it's really important. In that Indiana hotel room with Charlie Brent and Jocko, when he just in general, when nobody knew where he was headed.
No.
But that was the beginning of it. He was in a Wayne Cochran cover band.
Right.
Can you just take us through that early experience of, and looking back on it, how how important that experience was for even you in your musical career?
Well, at the time, like you said, we had a bass player, Artie Glenn, who was getting off the road, and we were looking for a replacement. And Bob Bobbing, who was responsible for producing the Jocko early years, and they were best friends. He played with a band in Fort Lauderdale. Him and Jocko were best friends.
Interesting.
So we went to Bob and said, would you be interested in maybe doing a gig? He said, I can't do this gig. He says, but I got a friend of mine that'd be perfect for it. So Charlie, Brent, the arranger, and guitar player, myself, and baritone player, Bob Gable, went to a nightclub to see Tommy Strand and the Upper Hand, Wayne Cochran cover band. And there was this skinny little kid back there, laying down this R&B solid, Duck Dunn and Jared Jamont and Chuck Rainey type of feels. But he had this other little thing that, this is kind of different, that Rocco type of thing, but this was like pre-Rocco. Rocco was just coming out the gate himself.
With Tower, yeah.
Yeah, so this wasn't a familiar, that staccato type of thing wasn't every day like it is now. So anyway, we said, well, yeah, he's he might work. So we set up a audition/rehearsal. So we there and we play through a couple of tunes, and Jocko just kind of nailed it, So Charlie said, well, look, this is a rehearsal. So he pulls out a chart. He says, look, we're going to play this tune, our instrumental we wrote. I want you to play through that. He said, he looked at it. He said, well, I can't read that. He says, what do you mean you can't read that? He says, you just played my book down. He said, no. He said, man, I can barely read. I can read. He says, I was here the other night and I caught your show. And he had total recall. He said, I memorized your show.
So he came to see you.
Yeah, he came
before the rehearsal. And
we, unbeknownst to us.
Total recall. Continue. Yeah. Unbelievable.
So we all had a good chuckle with that. And like Wayne and Charlie did with myself, because I was kind of a diamond in the raw as well. They see potential in players, young players. The players that come through that band, we've talked about that before, it's just unbelievable. Lee Thornburg, Lon Price, and the list just goes. Lon
Price.
Yeah, the list just goes on and on. Guys that would cut their teeth with this band. So anyway, we figure, well, whatever he doesn't know, he'll learn. And so he been on a band and things and so on and so on. And so it just kind of, and I think an important thing with Jocko at this particular time was the three-piece rhythm section. Because as you know, once you bring, if you got guitar and piano, another melodic instrument, it really restricts where you can go.
As a bass player.
Yeah, as a bass player, And so with him and Charlie, and he would pick Charlie's brain, and Charlie was just a master genius in his voicings and stuff. And that's how it came to be, us being in that hotel room together. Charlie was one of the few cats that had a cassette player back then. He had that Sony. That's where we got those gig tapes from. He didn't have stereo microphones. He put one down in front of the bass amp, one down in front of the guitar amp, and make gig tapes for me, so we could listen and study. Because what we were doing was different. We knew that. And so I could hear things and so, well, that works, and I hear other things, no, that don't work.
Yeah, you'd listen back to those shows from the night before and stuff, yeah.
So Charlie would be Charlie would make these cassettes of all kinds of music for me to listen to. I didn't have a cassette player. So I would hang out in Charlie's room. Charlie's over there writing with his little Casio. And Jocko would hang out, and listen to Charlie, watch Charlie write. He's watching Charlie write. He's listening to all these voices and stuff. And Jocko would have his bass on, and I would have headphones on, listening to the music, and I'd be playing all these exercises, these ostinatos and stuff. So Jocko could hear these repetitive, rhythms that I was playing, and so he would start playing his ostinatos, his scales and stuff over the voicings that Charlie was playing. And so it was just a little melting pot, because Jocko had no idea what I was listening to, but he could hear what I was doing. And he would take those rhythms and play over Charlie's voices. And I think,
And he was pulling the frets out.
well, so on one of these occasions, I think, like I said, it was in Indiana.
Yeah.
And this same scenario is going.
Were you in an adjacent room and he could hear you?
No.
You were just had headphones on.
Oh yeah,
in the
we
same
were all
room.
in the same room.
Wow.
We were all in the same room. Like I
Huge
said,
hotel room, actually.
Well, no, it was pretty crowded. It had the one bed. You always had that one.
Right.
You had the desk next to the bed, Charlie's writing, and you had the other little desk over there. And so we're not paying attention. I'm just playing through whether Jocko's playing or not. No matter what they're doing, I'm doing my thing. I'm reading through rhythm books and stuff and doing what I'm doing. All of a sudden, we kind of stop, because we see Jocko over there just like, I don't know what he's doing. And Charlie kind of stops for a minute, and we both kind of look over there. What the hell? He's tearing his bass apart. And Charlie stopped and said, Jocko, what the hell are you doing? Because he always had this vision in his head, this sound in his head that he wasn't getting. So that was always there. And he said, man, I'm making a fretless bass. He said, you can't make a fretless bass. You got a gig tonight. That's it. That's the only bass you got. He said, oh, no. Like we talked about before, Jocko was a combination of impulsive and compulsive, at
That's
the same
right.
time.
Right.
And so it wasn't like all of a sudden he said, I'm going to do this. He's been thinking about this for a long time. So it's not like he just started doing this crazy shit and didn't know what he was doing. So he's over there pulling his frets out, and I'm not sure, there was some type of wood filler. There's been all kind of debate on exactly how in the day. Well, he couldn't do this.
At the time, it was like
Yeah.
not paying attention to that kind
Right,
of stuff.
so we weren't paying attention. All we know, he's had his bass torn apart, and he putting it back together, and it didn't. He took it apart with frets, put it back together, didn't have frets, and he played the gig that night, and it was just.
He burned the gig.
Oh, it was like, because Charlie was trying to explain to him. He says, "Look, it's not like you just can't, you got to be right on that note to play in tune. You can't, you don't have the luxury of having the frets. You can be off and still be in tune." He said, "Yeah, whatever." Yeah. In typical Jocko fashion, So anyway, that's the.
Let me ask you a question,
God's truth.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes, sir.
You've talked about it in a sort of matter-of-fact way, but for younger cats, what is the importance of learning different rhythms and then incorporating that, how that leads into developing a big bag of tunes that To me, like that's essential. You
Yeah.
need to. Cats don't know a lot of tunes anymore.
Oh, right.
So because you were practicing, you realized that, I mean, especially with Jocko, you didn't want to step on anybody's toes. You wanted to stay out of his way. So it was your job to just lay those rhythms down.
Right.
And through that, you also, and this is even before Jocko, you just started, how did you develop a big bag of tunes? What would be your advice to younger cats about learning rhythms and how do you develop a big bag?
Well, first of all, you have to have the mechanics. You've got to understand the mechanics. Technically, for me, was always hard. I was a gigging drummer. My facility was always a struggle for me. But my understanding of music and the insight was the gift that I had. I have a near perfect sense of time that was gifted to me, and also too, you have to understand, which is easy to find, the table of time. You got to be able to feel subdivisions and hear dead air.
That's right.
That's the thing young cats struggle, is that when it gets quiet, they can't hear subdivisions in dead air. So no matter how slow I play, if I'm going, gang, that, I can hear all kind of subdivisions. So if Charlie's playing a swing, got a swing horn line that I've got to kick over that, you've got to be able to understand where those subdivisions lay. You know.
Oh, are they paralyzed by silence? They don't.
Yes.
They don't recognize that the space is music.
Yeah, because all they do is practice.
Right.
You know.
And not with other. They don't. Yeah.
They fill it up space. You know. So
Right.
for as players, you do justice to the music. You play the genre. You play the style. You know, and that was my only thing to other cats. You know, you play in tune, you play in time, and you play with feeling. You know, if guys used to always complain, say, "Man, you're such a perfectionist." I said, "No, I wish I didn't hear." I said, "I'm not trying to hear your mistakes. It's just that I'm listening to you." You know, music is a conversation. If I'm doing all the talking, I can't hear what you're saying. So I'm a minimalist playing it. You know, Wayne used to say it's not what you, it's old cliche now, but it's not what you play, it's what you don't play and where you don't play it.
That's
You know,
exactly it.
I developed the essence of my style, which makes me different, is that I created a sense of implying where I play half as much. If you look at me, you're going, well, he's not doing anything. But if you close your eyes and listen to me, you hear all these things that you swear that he's playing.
This is so classic. That's what Johnny. What did Johnny say about you? He's like, he just plays. Allyn plays. You heard it secondhand, but tell that.
Yeah.
Tell what
Johnny said. Yeah, Allyn doesn't play too much or too little. He just plays exactly what's supposed to be played. You know, one of my favorite trios of all time doesn't have a drummer in it. But you listen to those records and you swear there's a drummer. That King Cole trio.
Oscar Moore on guitar and
his brother. It was bass guitar and piano.
That's the most swinging stuff. And
And you're going, man. Well, who they didn't list the drummer in the credits?
No, that's like the Stan Getz Oscar Peterson album.
Yeah.
Ray Brown and Herb Ellis, no drummer.
No, yep.
So that's about inner time feel.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's implying that time where you close your eyes, you hear it, but you look at them and they're not playing that. You know, and so that's a gift in itself. And early on, you know, that's how my drum teacher, that's how I got my first gig, was that I practiced. My drum teacher taught me all the styles, all the beats rather. I learned them at every tempo and every dynamic. The first guy hired me because I had good time. Didn't know any songs, so he would count off a song, but that's how I learned them. He said, "Play me a swing tune, 1, 2, bossa nova, samba," and he would count them up. And then by that, playing those tunes, I eventually learned them. And then as you begin to gig more, I was 16 years old, working 4 nights a week. You know, making $25 less a week than my dad. But so after that, you start listening. You find guys with record collections, because now you can go to the internet. For a young cat that don't know a genre now, there's no excuse. Back then, you had to hunt guys.
I feel
down.
like though the part of the issue is now we're saturated with so much material. When you would go and dig through records, to get a record out, you had to clear a certain bar.
Right.
Now we're saturated in mediocrity.
Yeah.
So you have to almost really be a seeker to find the real stuff as it relates to genres of music. That's
you
the way
got to go back. Whoever I always tell cats, who's your favorite guy?
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, go find out who his favorite guy was.
Right.
When he was coming up, and then find out who that guy's. They don't go back far enough. You got to go back to Baby Dodds.
Absolutely.
And then after that, you got to go to Africa, you know?
Yeah,
and
no, I dig, man. It's like Sid Catlett, Baby Dodds,
Yeah.
and then, you're going back to the... I also, before I run out of memory here, I wanted to ask you about how exciting and petrifying it was when you were with a band leader early on who would just count the tune off, and there was no discussion or intellectualization of what tempo it was. It just you had to fall right into it. That was a master. That was what
They don't teach
Sonny
that.
Stitt. No. That's what all the masters did. That they just here we go. They wouldn't have a set list. They just start playing a tune at any tempo.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like that was also a nod to the accompanist to say, all right, what are you going to say on this?
Oh,
tune?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know the old adage. You know, you can't run with the big dogs. You're gonna pee like a puppy. You know, or if you're gonna platitude yourself, you know, oops, or excuses aren't acceptable.
Right.
You know, with Wayne, we they called the instrumentals before we went out. After that, and Wayne's first tune was usually that. And then after that, we'd be in a vamp, and they still don't teach you this. We'd be in a vamp, soft, and Wayne's talking. And by what he's saying, told me what the next tune was going to be. Normally, and it took me a long time to break him with that, he'd give me a cue someplace on the upbeat of 3 or something like that. He would do a dance step, I'd do a drum fill, and went into the next tune. So now you vamping, and you playing that tune, you're thinking about the next tune, and the tempo, and the complete tempo change, complete feel change, and so you're paying attention to what he's saying, and you're waiting because you never know when he's going to give that cue.
Right.
He gives that hand goes up, and he does that dance stuff. You better play a drum fill and then give the rest of the band 4 beats to be able to come into the next tune.
And you're not at that point, there's no intellectualization. It's you are in the moment, directly in the moment.
Yep. And there was no reading. Wayne's band is like you read the music at rehearsal. And the horn section had to memorize the music and dance, And so that was always but that was a life lesson that what a school, we talked about me getting what a fluke having Red Rodney on the band.
I love that story.
That's tell people that they're going, what? Anybody that knows who Red Rodney is, they're going, you kidding me?
Bebop galore. He's fired in there.
He was just so flashed out with a big band. And the 4 trumpets. He said, "Man, I gotta have a piece of this." So he quit his gigs and come out for because he was he wasn't roadworthy at that point. He was up there, but he could play his ass off. And
that was the first time you went to Vegas with Wayne.
With Wayne, yeah, right.
Allyn Robinson. We're going to have to do another phoner when I get back.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, man.
This was so much fun.
Yeah,
man.
honestly, man, thank you so much for inviting me out here because, the spirit is strong. And look at this beautiful, tranquil setting.
Welcome to my piece of paradise. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, this is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you later.